daily lives, that will change history, 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 that will change history. That will be the most beautiful day.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for tuning in tonight for our weekly intel report for the 15th of March, 2023. We just got done watching a little bit of a press conference there with Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin and General Milley there. They were giving updates on the breaking news we have for you guys this evening about that Russian fighter jet colliding with a U.S. Reaper drone. We'll talk more about that here in just a few moments. First of all, I'd like to thank everybody for tuning in this evening and taking some time out of your day to be here with us and get updated on everything that is going on in the world. If you haven't already, hit that like button. It's the best way to get the algorithm's attention. Hit that subscribe button. It's the best way to support the channel, and also it's the only way to get access to the live chat over in the YouTube live chat on the stream. Comment, share this stream if you like it. Again, it's the best way to get the information in the hands of more people is to share it. Tonight we're running a live chat poll over in the YouTube live chat. Tonight's poll question is: do you think the U.S. drone crash was a deliberate provocation from Russia? Do you think that collision was a deliberate provocation by Russia? Go ahead and head over there to the live chat poll and cast your vote. And towards the end of the show, we will discuss the results of that poll. Consider supporting the channel. There's links to that in the description below. For those of you that don't know, we dual stream to both Twitch and YouTube. For those of you following along on Twitch this evening, thank you so much for being here with us. Make sure to hit that follow button. For those of you that don't know, we do have a Discord server. You can find a link to that down in the description below. You could join our wonderful community over there, join in on the discussion, but also it's an amazing resource for up-to-date information on not just the ongoing events in Ukraine and the war over there in Ukraine, but we now cover a broad range of different topics of intelligence interest. So make sure to head over there to our Discord server. Everybody's welcome to join. Again, there's a link to that in the description below. We're going to start tonight's reporting by covering our breaking news story tonight, and then we'll get into our Ukraine headlines. We'll follow that up with our main headlines. Then we'll dive into the Situation Room, talk about some community news reports from our Situation Room over there on the Discord server. And then we'll look at some of our other open source intelligence data towards the end of that. And then, of course, we'll cap everything off with a Q&A at the end of the show. So hold your comments and questions for the end of the show, and we will answer all of those. First, tonight, again, our breaking news story. On Tuesday evening, the U.S. said a Russian fighter jet collided with a U.S. Reaper drone, forcing it down into the Black Sea. In what the U.S. forces called a, quote, unsafe and unprofessional intercept. A U.S. European command statement said the collision happened just after 7 a.m. on Tuesday, so that would have been, nighttime, our time here in the United States, when two Russian Su-27 fighter jets flew up to the MQ-9 Reaper drone over international waters west of Crimea. The statement said the Russian pilots sought to disrupt the U.S. aircraft before the collision. I actually have a few different articles talking about this incident with this drone here, so we'll take a look at those now. So in an article here from NPR, it says Despite the downed drone, the U.S. says it will keep flying near Ukraine. U.S. Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin Wednesday told his Russian counterpart that the United States will, quote, fly and operate wherever international law allows, including airspace near Ukraine. Austin delivered his message in a phone call with Russian Defense Minister Sergei Shoigu a day after the two Russian fighter jets confronted a U.S. drone over the Black Sea off the southern coast of Ukraine. The Pentagon said the Russian Su-27s had harassed the drone for at least a half hour, flying in front of it and dumping fuel on it before one of the Russian planes clipped a propeller on the drone, forcing it down. Russia claims its planes made no contact with the drone, saying the U.S. aircraft crashed on its own after making a sharp maneuver. Quote, "We will take any potential for escalation very seriously," said Austin of his talk with Shoigu. Quote, "I think it's really key that we are able to pick up the phone and engage each other. I think that that will help to prevent miscalculation." Austin spoke to reporters at the Pentagon following a virtual meeting with more than 50 nations that are supporting Ukraine, many of them members of NATO and the European Union. We just watched that press conference here just a few short moments ago before the show started. Meanwhile, UK, Germany scramble fighter jets to block Russian jets hours after that drone crash had occurred. It says here the UK and Germany had scrambled fighter jets to intercept two Russian aircraft flying near Estonia late Tuesday. The Russian aircraft, a Russian Il-78 Midas refueling plane and an Antonov 148 military transport plane, approached NATO airspace without contacting Estonian authorities. The incident was the first time the UK and Germany have conducted a joint air intercept as part of the NATO treaty. Quote, "NATO continues to form the bedrock of our collective security," UK Armed Forces Minister James Heppy said in a statement. This joint UK and German deployment in the Baltics clearly demonstrates our collective resolve to challenge any potential threat to NATO's borders whilst demonstrating our combined strength. Another post here coming from CBS News. It says Moscow will try to retrieve the U.S. drone wreckage in the Black Sea after the Pentagon blames Russian jet for that crash. It says here Moscow will work to retrieve the wreckage of that American drone that crashed into the Black Sea after Washington said a Russian fighter jet collided with it. A top Russian official said Wednesday Army General Mark Milley, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, told reporters Wednesday afternoon that the drone likely broke up in the crash and its debris was under thousands of feet of water in the Black Sea. Quote, "That's U.S. property," Milley said during a press conference at the Pentagon. "There's probably not a lot to recover, frankly." We have some footage here, the first footage from that incident, that confrontation in the over the Black Sea here. This is footage captured from that Su-27, that Russian Su-27 aircraft here, and it shows basically a repeated, very small clip of that pass-by. Actually, right as I'm about to show you this, Kayuka sends it over to me. Thank you, Kayuka, for sending this over. I'll actually show that first here. Yeah, so this is the same clip here. So again, this comes from that Su-27, and it's showing the MQ-9 Reaper drone here off its wing. Let's take a look at that footage of that flyby here. So again, this is that MQ-9 Reaper drone here. The propeller, apparently, so they clipped this propeller here on the back, which caused the drone to crash. You can see, one thing I noticed early on is the cameras are pointed backwards towards the oncoming direction of the Russian jet here. You can see the camera there is pointed behind the drone. So it did see it coming. So I'll go back over to Funker here. Funker 530 has this clip they've uploaded. It's the same clip, but they've slowed it down and looped it here so we can take another look at the drone itself. So again, you can see the drone here in slow motion. So again, reportedly they attempted to dump fuel on the drone, basically, by flying over it, and then dumping fuel onto it. And then, of course, they clipped that propeller there, and that is what allegedly brought the drone down. But again, you can see those cameras pointed towards the rear of the drone. Really slowed down clip here shows kind of this is almost a frame by frame here. You can see that propeller there. And then, of course, the camera's pointing backwards towards the rear of the aircraft. So again, that's about all the information I have so far on the this collision with this between this Russian Su-27 fighter jet and this drone. Again, we're gonna wait. We're gonna wait to get more information on that drone collision. We do know that the Russians, at this very moment, have approached the site in the Black Sea and are attempting to retrieve the wreckage. Still no word on if the U.S. is going to launch a recovery mission. It does seem unlikely at this time. However, we're going to wait to get more information. We'll head over here to our battle map now, because without further ado, we're going to get right into our Ukraine main headlines here, because we got a lot of news to go through. First today, the Kremlin said on Wednesday that relations with the U.S. were in a, quote, lamentable state at their lowest level after Washington accused Russia of downing one of its reconnaissance drones over the Black Sea. Kremlin spokesperson Dmitry Peskov said there had been no high-level contact with Washington over the incident. We know now that there has been some contact. They have talked, but again, both countries could probably use a greater deal of communication over this incident. Again, the U.S. State Department summoned Russia's ambassador over the incident. The White House said the drone's downing was unique and would be raised directly by the State Department officials with their Russian counterparts. The Russian ambassador to the U.S. called the incident, quote, a provocation. Russia's RIA state news agency cited Anatoly Anatov as saying, quote, we do not want any confrontation between the United States and Russia. We are in favor of building pragmatic relations. Anatov made the comments after being summoned to the U.S. State Department. He later added, quote, we are concerned about the unacceptable activity of the U.S. military in the immediate vicinity of our borders, accusing the U.S. of supplying intelligence to Kyiv. The Pentagon said the drone was on a routine ISR, also known as Intelligence, Surveillance, and Reconnaissance mission. U.S. Air Force Brigadier General Pat Ryder said Russia did not have the drone, but he declined to say whether Russia was seeking the wreckage so that its military intelligence could dissect it. We now know that they are indeed launching a recovery mission, and that vessels within the past few hours here have reached that site in the Black Sea. In further news here, Nikolai Patrushev, the secretary of Russia's Security Council, said in televised remarks on Wednesday that Russia planned to search for the drone debris. Quote, I don't know if we can recover them or not, but we will certainly have to do that, and we will deal with it, he said, adding, quote, I certainly hope for success. Meanwhile, Russia's defense ministry maintained that, quote, its fighters did not use airborne weapons and did not come in contact with the U.S. drone. The ministry said fighters from its air defense forces were raised into the air to identify the drone, which the ministry said was, quote, heading in the direction of the state border of the Russian Federation, most notably the Crimean Peninsula, I should add. British Defense Secretary Ben Wallace has urged Moscow to respect international airspace. State broadcaster Susplain reported that the Ukrainian city of Kharkiv was struck Wednesday by an S-300 missile fired from Belgorod region of Russia. Andriy Yermak, head of the Office of the Ukrainian Presidency, posted to social media to say that the area hit was near a school and that there were currently no casualties. Patrick Junio in the chat says, Nemico, I saw before that U.S. officials said that Russia is already at the crash site. Anything about that? So, yes, we do now know that that the Russians are at the crash site on the Black Sea and are attempting to retrieve what they can from that wreckage of that drone. In other news, Russia's defense ministry will start a new recruitment campaign on the 1st of April with the aim of recruiting 400,000 professional soldiers to the Russian army, according to a report released Wednesday by the Russian defense ministry. Radio Svoboda, citing several regional media outlets, has reported the Russian defense ministry has already sent orders to regions indicating the number of people with whom military contracts should be signed. So basically sending out their quotas there. Meanwhile, Ukraine can defend a $3 billion Eurobond lawsuit brought by Russia. The UK's Supreme Court has declared in a long-awaited ruling. Britain's top court ruled that Ukraine could defend the lawsuit, which was brought in 2016, on the basis that Russia's threats of military force amounted to illegitimate pressure on Ukraine to assume the $3 billion debt, Reuters is reporting. The case centers on billions of dollars borrowed from Russia to Viktor Yanukovych, the pro-Russian Ukrainian president who was toppled in a popular uprising in 2014. Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky described the ruling as, quote, another decisive victory against the aggressor, writing on Twitter, justice will be ours. Meanwhile, Turkey is planning to approve Finland's application for NATO membership independently from Sweden's before parliamentary and presidential elections that will take place on the 14th of May. Two Turkish officials told Reuters on Wednesday. Finland's president, Sauli Niinistö, will travel to Turkey on the 16th of March and meet with the Turkish president at that meeting. Again, that's the 16th of March. The Danish government and a broad majority of parties in Denmark's parliament have agreed to establish a fund of 7 billion Danish crowns, or around 822 million euros, or about $1 billion US dollars, for civil, military, and business aid to Ukraine. In some German news here, Germany's defense industry says it is ready to ramp up its output, including the production of the kinds of arms and ammunition needed by Ukraine, but that it needs clarity about what governments want before investing in further production capacity. Meanwhile, China, Iran, and Russia will conduct maritime drills in the Gulf of Oman starting today. The Chinese Defense Ministry has said the drills will run until the 19th of March. I have more news about this, more reports on this subject later in the show, so stick around for that. Meanwhile, Russia has proposed suspending its double taxation agreements with what it calls, quote, unfriendly countries, those that have imposed sanctions on Moscow, the finance ministry said on Wednesday. Some news out of Kyiv. Zelensky and his military chiefs have agreed to keep defending the besieged eastern city of Bakhmut. General Valery Zelenyy, the commander-in-chief of the Ukrainian armed forces, said the defense of Bakhmut was of, quote, paramount strategic importance, he said on Tuesday. Quote, it is key to the stability of the defense of the entire front. AFP journalists in eastern Ukraine have reported seeing white phosphorus fired from Russian positions on an uninhabited road leading to nearby Bakhmut. Weapons containing phosphorus are incendiary arms whose use against civilians is banned by the Geneva Convention, but they can be deployed against military targets, again under a 1980 convention signed in Geneva. Reporters currently are unable to verify these reports from AFP. The UN was scrambling Tuesday to ensure a Ukrainian grain exports deal aimed to ease global food crisis can continue, but its fate remained unclear days before the 18th of March expiry date. Talks between top Russian and United Nations officials in Geneva ended Monday, with Moscow saying it would not oppose prolonging the so-called Black Sea Grain Initiative, as many had feared. Meanwhile, Poland's prime minister said his country could supply Ukraine with MiG fighter jets in the coming 4 to 6 weeks. Warsaw's commitment to Kyiv has been important in persuading European allies to donate heavy weapons to Ukraine, including tanks. So that about wraps up the primary the primary Ukraine reports here. We're now going to switch over into more of our main headlines this evening. Our first headline this evening comes from the New York Post. This talks about Russia loses 1,090 soldiers in reported deadliest day of the war since the invasion began. It says here, Ukrainian troops killed more than 1,000 Russian soldiers in what could be the deadliest day of fighting since the invasion of the country more than a year ago, Kyiv's military said on Sunday. In a video shared by General Staff of the Armed Forces of Ukraine spokesperson Alexander Shatupan, again, that one's a little bit of a mouthful there, apologies, claimed that Ukrainian forces had killed 1,090 Russian troops on Saturday. This was this last Saturday. He also commended the elimination of 8 Russian tanks, 7 armored fighting vehicles, and 4 artillery systems in the fighting. So again, probably the day of the most Russian casualties since the beginning of the war. Our next post here comes from USA Today. It says Russia is to try to salvage the wrecked drone, says General Miley. It says not a lot to recover. Again, I kind of went through most of this earlier, but I'll read you the first paragraph here of this article. It says Russia will attempt to retrieve and study the wreckage of the American MQ-9 drone that crashed into the Black Sea after being harassed by Russian fighter jets. Nikolai Patrushev, secretary of the Russian Security Council, told Russia 1 TV on Wednesday that he was not certain about that the drone could be extricated from the water. Quote, I hope, of course, for success, he said. The Americans keep saying that they are not participating in hostilities. This is yet another confirmation that they are directly involved in these events in the war. Again, for those that weren't here for the press briefing earlier in the show, General Mark Milley, chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, had said at a Pentagon briefing that the drone sank into the water that's about 4,000 to 5,000 feet deep, making its recovery very difficult. Our next post here comes from Newsweek. It says, Putin officials are secretly against the Ukraine war, says an ex-spy chief. It says here, Russian President Vladimir Putin is doubling down on his invasion of Ukraine against the wishes of at least some of his top officials and influential oligarchs, according to one former NATO intelligence chief. Mick Marin, who headed Estonia's Foreign Intelligence Service from January 2016 until October of 2022, told Newsweek that Putin's grip on power remains strong, even if some of those under him are entirely opposed to the war on Ukraine. Quote, I think that during my days at the service and even now, Putin has quite a good grip on power, explained Maran, who now serves as CEO of Estonian State Forestry Management Center. But not all is rosy for the Russian leader, who has used his invasion of Ukraine to tighten control over domestic dissidents and allies alike. Quote here says, I think that the tensions are growing. Definitely we could see some signs there, said Maran. There have been officials in the administration who have been very critical of the against the war. I can't tell you their names, but there were and are officials inside the Kremlin that are totally against the war in Ukraine. Our next post here comes from NPR. Talks a little bit about the situation in China with Taiwan. It says Honduras says it will seek ties with China, spurring Taiwan. Honduras and the president there announced Tuesday that her government will seek to establish diplomatic relations with China, which would imply severing relations with Taiwan. The switch would leave Taiwan recognized by only 13 countries as China spends billions to win recognition for its one China policy. Castro said on her Twitter account that she instructed Honduran Foreign Affairs Minister Eduardo Reina to start negotiations with China and that her intention is to expand frontiers freely in concert with the nations of the world. Castro said during her presidential campaign in 2021 that she would look for ties with China if elected, but once in power, her government backtracked on those comments. In January 2022, the Foreign Affairs Minister told the Associated Press that Honduras would continue strengthening ties with Taiwan, and that establishing a diplomatic relationship with China was not a priority for Castro. In another post here from Reuters, talks about, again, Taiwan here. It says Taiwan sees wartime frailty in communication links with the world. And last week's report reported that China had reportedly cut internet cables to a few of the outlying islands, Taiwanese islands around Taiwan. This article here says Taiwan is scrambling to secure its communications with the outside world against an attack by China, but even in peacetime cannot quickly repair critical undersea internet cables and lacks suitable satellite backups, experts and officials say. China, which has never renounced the use of force to bring Taiwan under its control, has ramped up military and political efforts to force the democratically governed island to accept its sovereignty. Meanwhile, some news related to China, Russia, and Iran. This is some big news here that I think has gone underreported. Naval forces from China, Iran, and Russia, all countries that are odds with the United States at this very time, are staging joint drills in the Gulf of Oman this week. This came from China's Defense Ministry, which said in a report Tuesday. Other countries are also taking part in the Security Bond 2023 exercises, the ministry said, without giving details. Iran, Pakistan, Oman, and the United Arab Emirates all have coastline along the water body lying at the mouth of the strategic Persian Gulf. Quote, this exercise will help deepen practical cooperation between the participating countries' navies and inject positive energy into regional peace and stability, the ministry said. U.S. National Security Council spokesperson John Kirby said Wednesday that the White House was not concerned by the joint training exercise. Kirby said the U.S. and other nations conduct training exercises all the time, and this won't be the first time that Russians and Chinese have trained together. Quote, we're going to watch it. We will monitor it, obviously, to make sure that there's no threat resulting from the training exercise to our national security interests or those of our allies and partners in the region, Kirby said on CNN. Quote, but nations train. We do it all the time. We'll watch it as best as we can. In an article here from the Washington Post, again blocked by a paywall here, but I'll read you the headline here because that's basically the thick of the story, is that Russian oil revenues have plummeted in February as war penalties are just finally starting to catch up here with the Kremlin. Meanwhile, from the New York Times here, it talks about Russia's mercenary chief prepares ground for a political advance in Russia. It says now, for months, Yevgeny Prigozhin has been Russia's most public and provocative military leader in Ukraine. When he is not lauding the heroics of his private fighting force from the front lines, he is castigating the Russian generals for starving him of the supplies he needs to finish the work they could not. Yet now, as his mercenaries struggle to complete a takeover of the eastern city of Bakhmut, Mr. Prigozhin is increasingly turning his attention to Russia's home front in what analysts see as attempts to secure a political off-ramp from the debilitating struggle on the battlefield. He has said his fighting force Wagner will recede to the background after the fight for Bakhmut is over to gradually reload, to shrink. He also added in a video message published on March 11th that Wagner would, quote, transform into an army with ideology, and this ideology will be the struggle for justice. Such statements have coincided with other recent announcements suggesting Mr. Prigozhin wants to move past his standing as a military leader and play a larger role in Russian society. In a post here from AP News, it says Ukraine vows to hold on to Bakhmut despite the ongoing Russian onslaught. Ukrainian troops on Wednesday defended positions in Bakhmut in eastern Ukraine amid a relentless push by Russian forces to capture a city that has been turned into a wasteland by 7 months of fighting. Both sides claimed successes in what has become the longest-running battle since Russia launched its full-scale invasion of Ukraine more than a year ago. Ukrainian officials said that Ukrainian ground forces shot down a Russian fighter jet near Bakhmut and made gains in the northern parts of this city. Meanwhile, Yevgeny Prigozhin, the founder of the mercenary Wagner Group, which has spearheaded the Russian assault in the city, said in a social media post Wednesday that Russian forces have taken control of the settlement of Zalezhnya Koyi, and are expanding the encirclement of Bakhmut. The claims could not be independently verified. And a post here comes from 25% Roman on Twitter. Again, this is an unverified post here, but it says it's a video here that shows a Ukrainian tank crashing Wagner positions in Bakhmut. Reportedly, Ukraine conducted a counteroffensive move in Sobachivka, a district in Bakhmut, taking back some territory, pushing Wagner back. Let's take a look at this video really quick here. So again, for those that are just tuning in, we're watching some footage here, again, which shows a Ukrainian tank taking on some Russian positions here. In some news about Georgia, of course, last week we had those protests that were ongoing, riots and protests, I should say, that were ongoing in Georgia. The Georgian Prime Minister tells Ukraine's President Zelensky not to meddle in his country. The Prime Minister accused Ukraine's President Vladimir Zelensky of meddling in his country's political situation by commenting on protests there last week, prompting an angry response from Kyiv. During the protests against a, quote, foreign agents law that critics said signaled an authoritarian shift in Georgia, Zelensky thanked protesters for waving Ukrainian flags, saying it showed respect and he wished Georgians, quote, democratic success. And a post here from NBC News talks about Moldova. Moldova police said they foiled a Russian-backed unrest plot. Police in Moldova said they foiled a plot by groups of Russian-backed actors who were trained to cause mass unrest during a Sunday protest against the country's new pro-Western government. The head of Moldova's police said in a news conference that an undercover agent had infiltrated groups of diversionists, some Russian citizens, who allegedly were promised $10,000 to organize, quote, mass disorder during the protest in the capital. 7 people were detained, he said. Separately, police have arrested 54 protesters, including 21 minors, who exhibited questionable behavior, were found to be carrying prohibited items, including at least one knife. Meanwhile, in some kind of breaking North Korea news tonight, North Korea fires a ballistic missile ahead of Yoon's Japan trip. Actually, we have, so this is the Bloomberg Post, which of course is paywalled. We'll take this post. Actually, I have this one here from Fox News. We'll read that. It says here, North Korea launched another suspected ballistic missile, Japanese officials said Thursday local time, hours before a planned summit between South Korea and Japanese leaders. The office of Japanese Prime Minister Fumio Kishida tweeted about the launch. A follow-up tweet said the government was ensuring the safety of, quote, aircraft, vessels, and other assets and taking all possible measures for precaution, including readiness for contingencies. Says here the South Korean military said the missile was fired towards the East Sea. The launch came hours before South Korean President Yoon Suk Yeol and Kishida were slated to meet in Tokyo to discuss various issues, including it also came amid the ongoing South Korea-U.S. Freedom Shield exercise, which the North has decried as, quote, preparations for a war of aggression against it, South Korea, Yonhap news agency had reported. Again, here's just another duplicate article I had about that. We'll now switch over to our community aggregated reporting. We'll go through all of those posts for about the past day here. Our first post this evening, let me get caught up here in the feed. Our first post this evening is going to be a Ministry of Defense intelligence update. Yeah, so first I'll show the Ukraine defense intelligence update, and then I will show, there's a post that Kayuka just took the liberty of sending over that I think, we'll probably show that next. So the first one, again, posted by Kayuka. This is from the UK Ministry of Defense. Latest defense intelligence update on the situation in Ukraine for the 15th of March, 2023. Since the start of Russia's invasion of Ukraine, Russian public officials and workers have been subject to increasingly severe foreign travel restrictions. Some officials have likely had to forfeit their passports to the Federal Security Service. Employees closer to the center of power face more severe restrictions. Kremlin officials are banned from all international leisure travel. This is a widening of existing measures which date from the Soviet era. Travel restrictions were tightened after the Russian annexation of Crimea in 2014. The measures are likely designed to prevent the flight or defection of increasingly disaffected officials. There is a realistic possibility that as the securitization of the Russian state continues, travel restrictions will be tightened for an increasing number of public sector employees. Our next post here comes from Kayuka. He says, by the way, in case you didn't see it, Defense Ministry of Ukraine tweeted this. It shows Russian casualty numbers near Volodar. It says March 1st, 100 soldiers undertook an assault, 16 remained. March 3rd, out of 116 soldiers, 23 remained. March 4th, out of 103 soldiers, 15 remained. And March 5th, out of 115 soldiers, 3 remained. So again, just goes to show kind of the seriousness of the losses there that the Russian forces are enduring. Arguably much more casualties than the Ukrainians are dealing with. However, I should stress that both sides of the conflict are losing many soldiers and civilians. Next up, we have here the evening report of the General Staff of Ukraine, again, coming from Kayuka. He's summarized and translated the best of the best here, which I will read off now. It says, the Russian Federation does not give up its intentions regarding the occupation of Ukraine, continues offensive actions regardless of losses. The enemy is concentrating its main efforts on the Liman, Bakhmut, Avdiivka, and Marinka, and Shakhtarsky directions. In the Kupiansk and Liman directions, the enemy does not stop trying to break through the defense of our troops. The enemy led unsuccessful offensive actions in the areas of Bilohorivka and Sperini settlements. In the direction of Bakhmut, the enemy continues to storm the city of Bakhmut. Our defenders repelled enemy attacks in the areas of Vasilivka and Bonanivka settlements. In the Avdiivka and Marinka and Shatarsky directions, the enemy carried out unsuccessful offensive actions in the areas of Stepovi, Kamenyanka, and a few other, including Volodar settlements. A few other settlements there were listed as well. Marinka, Severny, and then, of course, you have Volodar, are most notable. In the Zaporizhia and Kherson directions, the enemy is conducting defensive operations. Because of their own powerlessness, the occupiers are fighting with the civilian population on the temporarily captured territory of the Kherson region. After effective fire damage on March 12th through 13th in areas of concentration of the enemy, and as a result of large losses, the invaders are intensifying regime measures in individual settlements. Russian occupiers usually travel in civilian cars taken from local residents. Also, on March 14th, the movement of the column of occupiers towards the Crimea, towards the looted property, was noted. In another settlement of the Kherson region, the enemy is carrying out counter-sabotage measures, justifying their actions. The villagers are accused of murdering a Russian soldier whose body was found there. In a post here coming from Politico, it says senators from both parties press Lloyd Austin, Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin, on sending F-16s to Ukraine. A group of senators from both parties is pressing the Pentagon for more information on what it would take to send F-16s to Ukraine. The fresh push came after a letter Tuesday to Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin from 8 senators and obtained by Politico, as top administration officials from President Joe Biden on down have poured cold water on bipartisan calls to send U.S.-made fighter jets into the fight for now. In a post here coming from Moscow Times, this comes from Kayuka. He translated the important bit here. It says, after yesterday's update about the summons being handed out in Voronezh Oblast, Russia today, it was reported that military enlistment offices have begun sending summons to men in Lipetsk and a few other Russian regions. So they are, once again, sending out military summons there, enlistment summons to military-age men there in those Russian regions. Another post here from... again, this comes from mod.gov. We're just going to go ahead there. Yep, open that up. Okay, so this talks about the ongoing drills here in the Gulf of Oman. It says China, Iran, Russia hold joint maritime exercises. Following the consensus reached by militaries of China, Iran, Russia, the navies of the 3 countries will hold the Secretary Belt 2023 Joint Maritime Exercise in the Gulf of Oman from March 15th to 19th, according to a news release from China's Ministry of National Defense on Wednesday. This comes from Svoboda.org. Again, the translation here. The Russian Defense Ministry will start a new recruitment of professional soldiers to the Russian army starting on April 1st. The goal is to replenish the army by recruiting 400,000 new soldiers. Post here coming from Ukrainska Pravda. There's actually a video here. The Russian state-owned news outlet RA Novosti has posted a video allegedly from a school in temporarily occupied Crimea in which the invaders teach junior and middle school students how to assemble an assault rifle, wear a camouflage uniform, and engage in hand-to-hand combat. Let's take a look. Well, I could say they know their way around an AK. That is for sure. Another post here, this comes from Ukrainiform.net. It talks about that Russian warplane that was downed near Bakhmut. It says Ukrainian defenders shot down a Russian warplane near Bakhmut. I'm pretty sure it was an Su-27, question mark? Or an Su-24. I think it was an Su-24 that was down. We have some video here to show you as well, which doesn't want to show up here for me. Of course. Oh, here we go. Here it is. So here's that video again of the alleged crash of this Su-24 with some copyrighted music there, so we'll mute that. So again, that's footage that allegedly shows that Su-24 being downed, or at least the crash of it in there in Bakhmut, outside of Bakhmut. Next post here comes from Noel on Twitter. This is a video from Wagner PMC forces reportedly inside Zalakaninski this morning. Head of Wagner, Prigozhin claimed this hamlet, only a couple of farms, was captured by his forces, which now seems to be confirmed. Let's take a look. So again, this is definitely Wagner unit. You can see their flag there, their emblem, or their unit emblem, I think that is. Of course, they had to get the 360 in there, show everybody the surroundings. Some more information about those call-up notices. Call-up notices are being sent out in 35 Russian regions, says human rights activist. Source here, Pavel Chikov, head of the international human rights organization Agora. Details, Chikov presented a list of 35 regions where call-up notices are being sent out, including Moscow and St. Petersburg, the oblasts of Leningrad, Moscow, Belgorod, and Murmansk, and the Altai, Perm, and a few other regions there. Chikov did not explain where he had obtained this information, but in his estimation, there is no question of a second wave of mobilization. Post here from Ukrainska Pravda talks about Israel approves export licenses for drones, jamming systems for Ukraine. It says here, Israel recently approved export licenses for the possible sale of anti-drone jamming systems that could help Ukraine counter Iranian drones used by Russia during the war, 3 Israeli and Ukrainian officials have said. Last post this evening shows a Tu-143 here, launch video. This comes from Cayuca. It says here, exact time and place are unknown, but let's take a look nonetheless. Again, that's a launch of a Tu-143. Next up, we'll switch over to our live universal awareness map. We'll take a look at everything that's been going on in Ukraine for the past about 12 hours or so. Get you guys the latest and greatest here. So we'll scroll down to our 12-hour mark. 12-hour mark here. Secretary of Russian Security Council says incident with the drone confirmed that the U.S. are taking part in combat actions in Ukraine. Says Russia will attempt to retrieve drone from the sea. 11 hours ago, the Internal Security Agency of Poland detained 6 people suspected of spying for Russia. So Poland arresting Russian spies. 10 hours ago, Zelensky signed the decrees on the dismissal of the heads of the regional administration of Luhansk, Odessa, and Kalininsk regions, Serhiy Gadai, Maxim Marchenko, and Serhiy Gamalia, said in that statement there. 9 hours ago, 2 people were killed, residential houses damaged as a result of Russian shelling in Marhanets. You can see here on screen some pictures of the damage to these residential houses and buildings. Nine hours ago, 7 people wounded as a result of Russian shelling in Kostanivka town and Ilinivka village of Donetsk region. You can see here some more damage to some residential buildings there. 9 hours ago, according to Russian media outlets, Vrtska and 7x7 Russian military enlistment offices Started to summon, that's some weird wording there, sorry. Started to summon eligible in 17 regions of Russia, according to official, to update personal data. So that's interesting. Commander-in-Chief of Ukrainian Army, Zaluzny, I had a phone conversation with General Burkhard, Chief of Defense, French Chief of Defense. I told him about the situation on the front line. We also discussed air defenses, augmentation issues, and the training of Ukrainian military service members. 7 hours ago, U.S. Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin spoke with Russian Defense Minister Sergei Shoigu about the MQ-9 drone incident over the Black Sea. The U.S. will continue to fly wherever international law allows, Austin said. 6 hours ago, Russian army shelling at Kostanivka with MLRS, so those multiple launch rocket systems there being utilized. 5 hours ago, Chief of the General Staff of the Russian Armed Forces, Gerasimov, held telephone conversations with Chairman of the Committee of Chiefs of Staff of the United States Armed Forces, Mark Milley, the Russian Defense Ministry had said. 4 hours ago, Israel recently approved the export licenses for the possible sale of those anti-drone jamming systems. I just mentioned that just moments ago here on the stream. And then 3 hours ago here, Belgrade governor says 2 missiles were shot down over Belgrade. And I believe they provided a video here. We can take a look at that. So again, this is video apparently of that missile being, at least the audio of that missile being intercepted. Again, not too much to go off there. 3 hours ago here, reports of explosion and smoke in the area of Belgorod Power Station. So again, for those of you who don't know, this is on Russian territory. So it's possible that a Ukrainian strike struck a power station there in Belgorod. So there's another video here which we could show you, I believe, from Telegram. Again, let's take a look. Okay, he's pointing in that direction. Seems to be a possible fire over there at the power station. It is hard to see. It is hard to see with the camera footage here. But again, reportedly, so reports of explosion and smoke in the area of Belgorod Power Station. So that about wraps up all of our reports for this evening. We'll now start a Q&A. If you have any questions or comments, now is the time to submit them to the live chat. As always, Super Chats take priority, but we answer basically every comment in chat that is left with us. If you haven't already, go and vote in tonight's live chat poll. It's over in the live chat on the YouTube channel. Tonight's poll question was, do you think the U.S. drone collision, I should have worded that differently. I said, do you think the U.S. drone crash was deliberate provocation from Russia? I should have said, do you think the U.S. drone collision was a deliberate provocation by Russia? If you have already, go ahead and vote in tonight's live chat poll. I'll go ahead and I'll end that off here in probably about 10 seconds. So if you haven't, head over there, vote in tonight's live chat poll, and then we will end that here and we'll discuss the results. We're at a nice even number right now. I might just end it here unless we have any stragglers that haven't voted yet. If you haven't, get your vote in now. Right now is the last call for that. Michelle Welch, thank you so much for tuning in tonight. Miss Tiger Eye, good to see you. Ryan, good to see you as well. Steve Canyon, glad to have you here. I'll go ahead and end off the poll real quick. All right. So, again, tonight's poll question was, do you think that U.S. drone collision was deliberate provocation from Russia? An overwhelming 83% of you say yes, and only 16% of you say no. I'll go ahead and I'll post that over in the Situation Room, those poll results. I found that pretty interesting. Miss Tiger Eye says, actually, first, Benny Hill says, Nemico, thank you, mate. Well, thank you so much, Benny, for tuning in tonight. Glad to have you. Ms. Tiger Eye says, Nemico, quick question. Steve thinks that you've spoke a lot of American propaganda. Is that true? Well, as I've mentioned before, all sides of this conflict have propaganda. As in any war, propaganda is probably one of the most widely used tools. One of the biggest weapons in war is propaganda. Do not be mistaken that all sides of the conflict between Ukraine and Russia are using propaganda to their advantage. The difference between U.S. propaganda and Russian propaganda is manufacture of misinformation. It's not just it's not just propaganda, but when you start to mislead, when you start to manufacture evidence, to back up your propaganda, that is where the U.S. and Russia start to differ. What was next here? Patrick Junio, thank you so much for tuning in. Says thanks, Nemico, and see you soon. Thank you so much, Patrick. Uktin says, Canyon is a Ruski troll from way back. I'm actually doing a video on Ruski trolls soon, or more specifically, Russian misinformation bots and their accounts. I've been working on a video about that for quite a while. I'm pretty excited to bring that to you guys. I got some really cool analytical data that we're going to look at, not just for Russian bots and Russian bot accounts, but also for Chinese bot accounts as well. Again, I can't wait to bring you guys that video. I'm going to try to be getting that out either this week or next. Nice White Rice, thank you so much for tuning in tonight. Joe Blown Wind, thank you so much for the super chat. Says happy birthday, shout out to Arakasan. Again, for those of you who don't know, I'm pretty sure his birthday was last week, if I'm not mistaken. But again, happy birthday to Arakasan. He's been a pretty involved community member for quite some time now. Again, Joe, thank you so much for the support, and thank you so much for tuning in tonight. Speedy Squirrel, thank you so much for tuning in. Glad to have you as usual. Steve Canyon says, where's your reports on the secret base vaporized in Kyiv? I don't have any reports of anything of the sort. Ryan says, Nemico, I completely disagree. Have seen a ton of that on Western side. I haven't noticed, if we're talking about manufacturer propaganda, I haven't noticed as much as we've seen with the Russians. I know the West does have its fair share of propaganda. But it's nowhere in comparison to the amount that Russia has utilized during this conflict. And again, the difference I tend to stress is that Russia, they manufacture misinformation instead of just spreading misinformation. That again is where I kind of separate the two. Benny Hill says, Nemico, I'm legit a nutty Brit. Always honest, mate. Well, that's good, Benny. That's the way to be. Michelle Welch says, anything on Mehmet? I don't have any updates on Mehmet now. I know he was, last heard, he was still living in Kyiv, and he occasionally updates us and pops into the Discord. I wouldn't be surprised if he was watching the show right now, actually. If you are Mehmet, hi, hello, thank you for tuning in. But I hope to have him on the show at some point in the near future. I've been pretty busy lately, and I want to have time to actually sit down, write some good questions. Every time I've ever done a real interview with Mehmet, it's been kind of on the fly, and I feel like my questions are always lacking. So I really want to get some really good questions that kind of cover the past 6 months to a year of what he's been dealing with there in Ukraine, and maybe ask him about what life's been like there recently. I know he's posted some pictures to the Discord from Kyiv over recent weeks and recent months, I should say. And that stuff is always very informative, just seeing what kind of life is like on the streets of Kyiv. Lily Scissorhands says, hi, I've been here just cleaning while listening. I did a video of the military planes when the drone strike happened. It went from about 5 to over 100 on ABS exchange. Granted, that's the world. Thank you so much, Lily, for tuning in tonight. Benny Hill, thank you so much for the super chat. Says, I got £2 cost of bloody living. Well, thank you so much, Benny, for the support, and more so just for being here with us tonight, man. Thank you. Seb B says, thanks, Nemico. Great as always. Keep it going. I shall. Thank you so much for tuning in tonight. Kender says, night all. Night to you, Kender. Thank you so much for stopping by tonight. Kayuka, aka the account in live chat, says, time for me is running out. I will probably be gone from the Discord for about 1 month, around April/May, depending on how things go. But I will keep the reports going as much as possible. Is that for work, Kayuka, or I'm not sure. Did you have the? I know you were having a baby there, if I'm not mistaken. Let me know. You said you're going to be gone from around April to May. I'll have to pick up the slack then a little bit. Miss Tiger Eye says, Nemico, do you think that drone hit was provocated? Yes, I believe it was I believe it was intentional for sure. I mean, they were dumping fuel on the thing. They were trying everything they could, besides shooting a missile at it to take that thing down. I think maybe the intent was to make it look accidental, so it could be argued that it was accidental. Apparently, they reportedly clipped its propeller. That's very concerning to me. If they did that intentional, that would be hugely unsafe for any pilot to perform that maneuver. Yeah, not sure if they shot the tail or if they directly struck it with the wing of the aircraft. Oh, Kayuka says moving and the baby during that time. Right on. Those two things together, they can definitely take a lot out of you. Trust me, I know. I've been there. Hope you get through that, Kayuka, and we'll be here when you get back. Don't you worry. Keep us posted. Michelle Welch says, Monday, my new granddaughter will be here. Well, congratulations. GoFlow says, definitely on purpose as to that drone collision. I highly agree with that. Special Force Horse says, loved the intro, Nemico. Awesome. Be safe, guys. Love to all from New Zealand, Slava Ukraini. Thank you so much, Special Force Horse, for being here with us this evening. As always, awesome to have some New Zealanders tuning into the stream. Kayuka says, I will see you once everything is settled in that case, unless Putin decides to nuke us all. Well, let's pray that does not happen, Kayuka. Miss Tiger Eye, thank you so much for being here tonight. Kayuka, thank you so much for being here tonight. To all the mods that tuned in tonight, thank you so much for being here, as always. Thank you guys for supporting the chat, keeping the peace. KJC, thank you so much immensely for the super chat, man. As always, glad to have you here. He says, thanks as always, the Omnisaya, for keeping us informed. No problem, KJC. It's the least I can do, and I plan to continue doing more here. I got a ton of videos. I have like a dozen videos that I've been working on here that are coming your guys' way. We got shorts. We have, of course, these intel reports I'm planning to get. I haven't had the 24/7 cam stream up very much, but I plan to get that back up and running this week as well. We'll get that live streaming for you guys again, 24/7, covering the situation around Ukraine and occasionally the situation around China and Taiwan as well. Ryan says, thanks, Nem. Great show. Thank you, Ryan, for being here, for joining in the chat. To everybody, that is giving their opinions in chat, relaying information, having these intellectual arguments is what we are here for, is to exchange information, to communicate, to, again, just exchange this raw flow of information that we are being bombarded with, on a daily basis. Itchy the Killer, thank you so much for tuning in tonight. He says, Anasaya, thanks for all your work. Well, thank you, Itchy, for being here with us. As always, glad to have you. Miss Tiger Eye says, of course, thank you, Master Nem. As always, tell the fam we appreciate them sharing you with us. I will, Miss Tiger Eye, for sure. Thank you so much. And again, I feel privileged to be here with you guys and be able to do these streams with you guys. Ryan says, would love the 24-hour cams. Don't worry, I will be getting that back up for you in no time. At some point, either today or sometime this week, I'll be getting those 24/7 streams back up, and we'll be running those again. I had been running them for quite a while, but recently, past week or two, I hadn't had time to get them back up and operational. Fallen Rays, Miss Tiger says tacos speeds. I had tacos today. Tacos. I'd like to have tacos on the menu at some point this week. I know. I feel like one of our favorite food in this chat is tacos for some reason, and we're all obsessed with root beer now. So that's interesting. Fallen Rays, thanks so much for being here. Again, shout out to one of our other mods. He says, I love tacos. Well, we love you, Fallen Rays. The account says, hope to see you all next week. I'll see you, Kayuka. Looking forward to your next daily report. Fallen Rays says, burritos over tacos. Right on. We can agree with that. Rakasan says, going to need those camps come May. That is for sure. Michelle Welch says, thank you, Nemico. Look forward to every week. Well, we look forward to you, Michelle Welch. Again, thank you so much for tuning in tonight. Paul Fiacca says, I love tarps. I think we all love tarps. Kuka says it went live during your report. Well, I'll probably watch that as soon as I'm done with this. To everybody that doesn't know, Kayuka, aka the account, does a daily condensed, usually about 5 to 10 minute report on the daily events in Ukraine. Highly recommend it. Go check that out. Make sure you subscribe to him when you're over there. So, without further ado, that about sums up our Q&A for this evening, and with it our stream, our weekly report. Again, thank you to everybody that tuned in tonight for our weekly intel report for the 15th of March, 2023. This was day 385 of the war in Ukraine. So, again, for those who don't know, we are well over a year now into this very bloody war of attrition here in Ukraine. If you haven't already, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel. It's the best way to support us. It's also the best way to get access to, it's the only way, to get access to our live chat here on the YouTube channel. Comment and share. For those of you that don't know, this live stream is uploaded to the YouTube channel every night after we're done. Or sorry, not every night, but every week after we're done with the stream, we upload it as a video. So if you missed out on certain parts of the live stream, or if you want to go rewatch it, or if you missed it altogether, you can go and you can check it out over on the YouTube channel as a video. Make sure to leave a comment. Make sure to share this content. It's the best way to get this information to the hands of more people. Consider supporting the channel. There's links to that in the description below. Check out our merch. Twitch. If you guys followed on Twitch tonight, thank you so much for following. If you haven't already, hit the follow button. To everybody that's subscribed over there on Twitch, thank you so much. To everybody that's subscribed here on YouTube, thank you guys so much for supporting us. There's a link to the Discord server, in the description below. If you haven't already, go over there, join our Discord server. Actually, Miss Tiger Eye just posted a link to Kayuka's channel in the live chat, so subscribe to him. Also, she posted a link to our Discord server in the live chat on YouTube as well. So, if you haven't already, join our Discord server. Everybody is free to join. It's a wonderful place to get up-to-date information on everything going on in the world, all global security threats. Things like the Ukraine war, China, Taiwan tensions, tensions between the U.S., Iran, the U.S., North Korea, all sorts of stuff we cover over there. Go and check it out. It's a wonderful resource. We'll be back here, guys, next week, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, so don't miss it. Keep keep your eyes out in the update channel over there on the Discord, also over on the community page on the YouTube channel. I post updates there to let you guys know what we're doing, when we're going to be going live, etc. Keep an eye out for the weekly Intel summary video, which is a community-edited, summarized version of these weekly reports, which are posted usually the day of or the day after this report. So make sure to keep an eye out for that. Big shout out to my community editors that work very hard on those. I think that about sums it up, guys. Once again, thank you to everybody for being here tonight. I think that about sums it up. Until next time, ladies and gentlemen, you are watching Nemico Network.
Something that will change our daily lives. That will change history. 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 That will be the most beautiful day.